Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Today's guest is Becky Sampson, aka Becky Brockovich. She is a divorce strategist for women and the founders of ONLY Subpoenas. Becky went through 21 hearings, 21 subpoenas, 3.5 years in family court, and 5 attorneys, many times representing herself. Instead of walking away defeated, she turned the experience into a mission, helping women avoid the biggest mistakes in divorce and come out stronger, smarter, and more empowered. And I really do love Becky, so I'm just going to throw that out there ahead of time. This might be a little selfish. Becky, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I was so excited when I got to have you interview me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, because we've chatted, but we haven't got to do it officially.
I know,
You know what I'm saying?
and that's every time somebody reads my bio, I always am like, oh my gosh, that's right. That was
That's what I do.
I can't believe it. I actually came through that victoriously. So.
Well, let's start around there. What the heck is the difference between a divorce strategist versus a divorce attorney?
Oh, well, first of all, let me just tell you, I am not an attorney. I don't give legal advice. Ever since I grew up in a family that we actually owned and operated a summer camp for kids. So ever since I was a little kid, I remember my mom, we were all entrepreneurs, right? We still are. And my mom would always say, what's the problem? How do we come up with a solution? And I was like, oh, so she's like, okay, find a problem out there, come up with a solution. So I think, even though I'm of ripe age at this point, maybe not for some people, but for me, I got the gray hair to show it. I have become someone who strategizes. So a divorce attorney is definitely someone that you'd go for legal advice.
Yeah.
If they've had experience of the court or that particular judge, or, what's that, they also strategize as well. However, I really love when someone comes to me at the very beginning, whether they are just starting the process or thinking about the process. And by the way, even though I'm a divorce strategist, I'm not for divorce. Okay. It's really kind of interesting because I don't want people to feel like divorce them and go that way. I truly, even though I've been divorced twice, I'm married for the third time and last, thank you. But I really do believe in the sanctity of marriage and keeping it together when you can. However, when it does get to the point where you see that it's inevitable and it's going to happen, I dang well want you to be ready and to know what your rights are so that you know how to navigate it smart. Because there's so many people that have come up to me during this process and they're like, Becky, I wish I would have known you when I was going through my own divorce. So strategist, meaning I love to talk to people before they're considering or when they're first starting the process so I can help just guide them and say, hey, this is what I did that worked well. Obviously I can't give legal advice, but I will tell them what worked for me in order for me to
things to think about.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Get a piece of paper, start writing because I talk fast.
I want to clarify that when she said ripe, she meant ready and perfect to be picked.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Whatever.
I have to say something. This weekend, I had a very special experience happen, and someone turned to my mom, and he said, your daughter is quite tender. Because, I was crying and I was just for a beautiful moment. And my mom turned to him, and this is so my mom that says it. She goes, yeah, she's been tenderized. I thought that was so classic.
Mom's a chef, by the way.
I know.
That's great because at the same time, it's like, yes, but I promise you, if you mess with her, you will find the other side of tender, my friend.
Oh, Tinder. No, I don't know. Tinder. No, tender, not Tinder. I've been on Tinder enough, but no, I truly believe that in our life, we experience different things. So I realize that not everybody's like this, but I have always, from a very, very young age, always felt that if I went through something difficult, I want to be able to turn around and help other people.
Yeah.
And there are amazing people in this space, in the divorce space, that do that. I mean, I happen to use the ONLY Subpoenas, the subpoenas, because that's how I won my case. But there's so many people that are in the mediation space, that are in the forensic space, or, that have been through some pretty tremendous, difficult divorces, and going, not on my watch. Am I going to let other people suffer through this? So.
Yeah, I find that's usually a good jumping off point for most people that get really good. It's like, no, 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 I've got something to stand on now. That's why I'm so good at what I do.
Right. Right. And it really does come from a place of heart. That's another thing I've seen with people in this space. And for me, strategizing, because everybody's situation is different. Like, I had one lady call me several months ago, and she had been on her third divorce, and she wanted to finalize it, but she was like, Becky, I want to represent myself like you did, and all this stuff. And I said, look, here's the thing though, you're on the tail end of your third divorce. And some of the things that she shared with me was pretty evident that she was mad at her attorney, and it was going to be worse for her if she didn't go make peace with her attorney and just get this thing closed.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's important. I mean, every situation is different. And I love when people bring me all these, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at, this is my situation. And I'm like, okay, well, you might want to consider this and that.
Yeah.
And because these are the options that are available out there for you. And then I will send them the information on the code to be able to go research it for themselves. So
Yeah.
I really am a lifeline for people.
Yeah, like to me, you sound like a puzzle piecer, like
I love it.
you take that 100,000-mile view from up here and go, look, now that I have everything and my perspective takes in all of this, because I've been through all of this,
Mm-hmm.
let me give you where I see stuff going and the stuff you probably don't see, because when you're in it, you can't see it. You're in it.
Right. Well, and that's what I always say. People going through divorce honestly don't know what they don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't know what I didn't know when I started. And
Yeah.
that's why the Becky Brockovich, and now it's like Becky Bulldog Brockovich with subpoenas, right? Because you have to be a bulldog. You've got to make sure that you're 100% compliant when you're doing things like that. And but when I first started, I knew nothing about the law. My first divorce was nothing. I mean, it was like we just went to a notary and signed some things, agreed some things, and never saw a judge or an attorney. The second one, this went through 21 hearings.
God.
And I called 20, and this was for less than a 2-year marriage. And people were like, what in the world were you in the court for? I was like, and we didn't have kids or anything. And I'm like, it literally was because my former husband was not willing to do anything, not willing to abide by any of that. And so I just stood my ground. And it ended up in the 3.5 years. However, I do thank him today that he gave me my education.
Yeah.
Like, I know a million times more. And so Becky Brockovich, which is really funny because my VA doesn't know what that means. She's from the Philippines. I'm like, go watch the movie. That's who I am I'm an advocate for people going through divorce, men and women.
Yeah. 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 It's funny because, you're like, yeah, I had such a pleasure going through these 3 years that I decided I wanted to share. But no, it makes sense. Again, when you can go through something like that, I think it's usually, even people say this about business, but it's like, if you've failed once, then other people are willing to work with you because
Right.
you already did that, right?
Right.
You made the mistakes, you learned so much, you figured out, you fall on your back so you can see how to get up. And now this whole thing is different because you've got perspective on it versus you didn't even know where to step here. You didn't know if you were going to fall because you've never been here,
Yeah.
but you've been there. And now
Yeah.
you've been there however many times with everybody you worked through that God.
Yeah. And it's a tough space because nobody wakes up in the morning and goes and educates themselves about divorce. Like, it's just not something that we think is going to happen. And to be honest with you, I've started writing a book called Divorcing Strong. So like my whole brand is Divorcing Strong. And when I got married to my now husband, I told him, I said, I'm in the divorce space, just so you know. And he's like, I don't want you anywhere near it. However, we went through another court case, and I stood by his side during all of that. And during that, he realized, he's like, Becky, you light up when it comes to reading legal documents and doing these subpoenas. And we had to end up doing a subpoena for our case as we were preparing for trial. And our attorney was 35-year attorney. We spent $25,000 last year fighting for a granddaughter. And we went for trial, and my husband came to me and said, we need to do a subpoena, this specific subpoena. So I called the attorney, and he's like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was like, what? Like, what is wrong with attorneys and wanting to do subpoenas? And that was kind of like, because I had that same problem with the other attorney that I worked with. I did have for a period of time during my divorce, and he was like not wanting to do it either. And I started seeing this pattern. And finally he's like, you know what? I'll charge you $500 to do the subpoena. And I was like, $500? Like for what? Because I had done so many of them. And meanwhile, my husband's like, that's fine. Just go ahead and do it. And so we did it. Within 45 minutes, I go and do my due diligence to make sure that it's compliant, that specific subpoena, call his paralegal back, who's been his paralegal for 18 years. 18 years. And she goes, no problem, Becky. I've already prepared the subpoena. It went off to the bank within that 45 minutes, and it's been rejected. So 1 out of every 3 subpoenas gets rejected. Okay. And I've known this. However, when you work with only subpoenas, it's 100% compliant or you don't pay. And so when the paralegal said it had been rejected, I said to her, well, did you do this, 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 and this? And she goes, how do you know that? I said, because this is what I do. I make sure that I could not afford during my divorce for my subpoenas to not go through. And she's like, so I sent her the email. It went right through. 2 weeks later, we got the information. And then 2 weeks later, we settled. So so my husband turned to me,
ego?
You have to do this.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you why. Is subpoenas, every single subpoena, it's not a cookie cutter thing. So
it takes a lot of detailed work.
Yeah, it takes detailed work, and a lot of attorneys don't have the time and the energy to not only find out how it needs to be compliant, but then to follow up if for some reason the stuff comes back. Well, that's what I do is I do 100% compliance. And if anything comes back that they didn't provide, I have all my contact information of the people, and I'm the one that follows up for them. So they don't have to do any of that. That's all. It really was my husband now that turned to me and he was like, you have to do this. You've got to do this.
Because they're make or break. And if people aren't, literally just staying away because they don't think it and again, I have another podcast that's in that kind of health space. And it always reminds me of having conversation with people that are going through this crazy sickness they've had for, 30 years, and they've had X removed from their body because their doctor said so. And then they either found a nurse or a wellness practitioner that sat and talked to them. And they had a detailed conversation, like I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
And you're like, to me, it's like you're the nurse that really does everything. And the doctor comes in and goes, what do we need to do? Great.
Well, really, I'm the outsourced it's funny because the paralegals love to work with me.
Sure.
Right? Because the paralegals, that is part of their job as the paralegals, but they just outsource it to me. And I'm like, look, just send it to me. And I'm like a dog with a bone in my mouth. The other day, I subpoenaed Lululemon. Well, Lululemon, man, I was like, yeah, let's go. So, I go and find out that they're a Canada company. And then I found out that they were domesticated in another state. And then it's like that. Most attorneys just, I don't blame them.
But you enjoy the tracking.
Oh, I love it. That's something that I've learned through my divorce is that I never thought I was smart, Dean. I never did. I grew up in a very, very smart family. Like all my family members are like MBAs and Stanford graduates. And I didn't get my degree until just a few years ago in 2022 in peace building, mediation, and conflict resolution while I was going through my divorce. But I've never felt like I was smart. And going through this divorce, it really allowed me an opportunity to step into this brilliant self of mine that loves research. And that's who I'm going to hire as well to work with me, because it's a nationwide company. People that love that. I want them to wake up in the morning and go, okay, where's my subpoena? Like, what do I, and then they win cases. That's the case is that when you have the right information, it absolutely wins the cases. And so my husband turned to me and he's like, you know what I love most about what you do, Becky, with the Only Subpoenas, is he's like, it helps only the disadvantaged.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true. That's so true. So yeah, that's that. I absolutely love what we're doing. I mean, I love where it's going, and to be able to empower people with the right information so that they can get a fair and equitable division, because that's how I won my case.
Yeah, it's really cool because one, you're obviously a pleasure to chat with in general. So when people are working with you, there's all that extra that goes along with being able to enjoy the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine because, like, we haven't known each other that long, but anytime we talk, it's really easy to open up, have conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's 90%. And when you're going through divorce, where you're already feeling very protected and not wanting to have those conversations,
Right.
you're someone they can have those detailed conversations with. That, of course, at the end is the stuff that helps you guys get to the other side on a much happier note.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important to be able to trust the people that you confide in during a divorce. I mean, I've been a life coach for 16 years. I don't even know if you know this information, but I lost 130 pounds back in 2010. So I hit my goal weight, quit my job, and got divorced to my first husband all in the same month of July 2010.
While getting a degree or two.
No, my degree was just a couple years ago. Yeah, but that was like a total life reset. So ever since then, when I quit my job, I jumped into radio. Actually, that's how I started, is radio. And then eventually went to TV, and I've done podcasting. And I mean, I did radio and internet radio before it was even podcasting back then.
Yeah.
And so I have always had this heart. Well, I shouldn't say always. Yes, always. However, in the last 16 years, it's been a real focus of mine to be able to help people. So I did health coaching for a long time.
Yeah.
I know that's what you're really passionate about as well. And because people would come to me, oh, how did you do that? And how did you maintain it for all these years? You know, that's a whole nother game. Because, the struggle never goes away.
No.
So life skills, having the right life skills. And that was one of the things going through my own divorce. The very first, now looking back, I see one of the most important things that I did during divorce was make my self-care my number one priority. Because if I didn't take care of me when I had to go to court and represent myself up against these attorneys, I should say mainly one attorney, but it's terrifying. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was doing the best I could. And it's just one of those things, unless you deal with it every day, it just brings a lot of stress. And so for me to stay healthy, because health was really important to me, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, I had to get people that I trusted around me. And that's what I call myself, is really a strategist that's a lifeline, because I will always take a call. There's a gal even that reached out to me last night, and she's like, Becky, like, what do I do? She's told me a little bit about her situation. And she's at the beginning stages. And they know that, hey, you can always reach out. You can always ask questions, because I wish I did have a few people to do that, but I wish I had someone more that was focused specifically to divorce, because a lot of our family members and friends may not be acquainted with aspects of what's going on during the divorce.
Well, and it's usually going to be a one-sided conversation, because they probably only support you and don't know both sides, where, part of the job is obviously giving them perspective of going, look, I know you're thinking this, but let's talk about this other side as well.
Yeah.
It's really a cool, I mean, I feel like you just went through the perfect training to land where you are, right? And it's always the path is that we think we're making these silly mistakes, and we're walking this funny thing that we're doing, and the next thing you know, you have combined life coaching with this deep dive into subpoenas and trying to represent yourself, to now be literally a life coach that allows people to help them find their way through the path of divorce anyway, in a healthy way.
Yeah. And I remember, Dean, actually, when I was going through it, I remember saying to my mom, I'm like, Mom, there's got to be a bigger reason, because I was in such survival mode.
Yeah.
I mean, he left me with very little financially in Hawaii. And I stayed there for 5 years, and it's not cheap to live there. Yeah. And I applied for 45 different jobs, and I could not get a job to save my life. When I finally did get one, it was like $10 to $12 an hour doing podcasting like this on this platform. I started 2 of them. And luckily, they're continuing them, but they wouldn't pay me more because I was a student at the time. And they considered me, even though I've run a multi-million dollar business, so it was very, very hard for me. And I remember saying to my mom, I'm like, I literally know that I'm going through this for a much bigger reason.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, I didn't know that I would be doing Only Subpoenas. And really, I tell my husband all the time now, and he's amazing, by the way, but I tell him all the time, I'm like, I'm going to blame all our success with this business on you, because it's you. He literally like would not stop talking to me one day about like, Becky, I see you light up when you help people with subpoenas and when you help them with that. And I'm like, okay, are you serious? Are you sure? And I was going to call it Aloha Legal, but then people would think I was in Hawaii, right?
Right. Yeah. It loses.
Yeah. And then Apex Legal. And I'm like, that doesn't tell you what we do.
No.
I'm like, we only do subpoenas, like the dollar store. Like, how much is it?
Right. You can't get how better to explain what we do when you can do it in 2 words.
I know. Only subpoenas. That's all we specialize in, is the compliance and prep and compliance of a subpoena. So
Yeah, and it's, while yes, it's only subpoenas, there's so much more. I mean, just knowing you, listening to what you do when you're working with these predominantly women, there's so much more because you bring so much more to the table. I mean, coming from a life coach background already, you
yeah,
can't help but to be tuned into every little facial expression and what's going on for someone to
right.
say, wait, let's slow down right there and talk about that for a second, to let them find ways to, because I feel like you're almost giving someone a healing journey through
Mhm.
their divorce while also finding the best way financially to get out of this divorce.
Yeah, and it's and again, when they're going through, people are going through a divorce. So I really have 2 different sides of my business. One is the Only Subpoenas. So that is, and I also, because of my experience of not being paid during my divorce, I am writing that as part of my company, is that I'm going to be hiring people out of divorce. So because if I would have had an opportunity, like I had a lady call me 58 years old, and she's never worked. She's raised 6 kids. Her husband had an affair. And he's leaving her, and she doesn't know where any of the assets are. She's like, what do I do, Becky? And I'm like, okay, I wish I was like in a place at that point to be able to go, you have a job tomorrow. Can, like hire her, teach her to do the subpoenas the way that I do them and that we do them at the Only Subpoenas, and give her an instant income. And I pay people every Friday, because when you're going through a divorce, you need money now. You don't need it in 2 weeks. And so I'm really forming this business more as a mission too, to be able to help people get their feet back on the ground on a much, I'll leave it at that. And I've got the other part of my business, which is really, I haven't launched my support groups yet, but I am going to, which is called The Gathering. And that's women coming together and being able to support each other through this very emotional time online.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's that part of it, the coaching. And again, I've been taking calls for months and months with people going through divorce. I will always answer my phone call. And just because I know what it's like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, and the funny thing is they both will feed. So I'll have somebody call me, and as a strategist, they'll be like, okay, Becky, what do I do? I'm like, well, if you have an attorney, then I can do subpoenas for you. And so they'll contact their attorney, and their attorney will call me back and go, yeah, let's do this, work together. And so the power of the subpoena, let me just talk about this for just a second, because people don't even know what a subpoena is. So when you're going through a divorce, there's oftentimes, especially if you haven't had privilege to the financials, that even though the court requires you to put your financials in there, there's a lot of shenanigans that go on. Just saying.
Yeah.
And I always say to people,
say all the accounts.
Yeah, exactly. And just because they're trying to hide an asset doesn't mean that those assets are hidden. That's one of the things that I say. Now, I also don't, as a strategist, don't tell people to go straight to doing a subpoena, because that's kind of an aggressive move. And I'm all about peace building, believe it or not. You want to do the best that you can. The only reason why I ended up having to go to subpoenas is because I did multiple rounds of discovery asking for what I needed, and multiple rounds of motion to compel through the court, then the court saying you need to supply her with that, and then he didn't do it, and then another motion to compel. And it just wastes a lot of time and a lot of energy. And finally, the only reason why I know how to do subpoenas today is because his attorney subpoenaed one of my bank records. And once I saw the subpoena come through, I asked his attorney, I said, why didn't you just ask me for it? Within 24 hours, I sent it to him with it highlighted, what he was looking for, and everything. He's probably like, what the world? Like, he still subpoenaed it. That's fine. But that gave me a template, because I was working with an attorney that he was through legal aid. And he goes, well, there you go, Becky, there's your template. Now you know how to do it. So, and I'm a graphic designer, so I know how to get in there. And I basically took I know. I took exactly the thing. I laid it out in Illustrator, which is really not like, that's not but anyway, because there's all kinds of formulations and whatever formats that you need to do for the court. And so I didn't know what I was doing back then. And so I did my first subpoena, and then he helped me with like the process, right? Because every state is different and blah, blah, blah. And once I learned it once, I was like, okay, that's it. No longer, I'm not going to ask for permission anymore. I'm just going to go get what I need. And so subpoenas, there's only one organization that I know of it's now that you can't subpoena, which is the IRS. However,
that's its own conversation.
I know, right? But however, when you subpoena, it's that organization that is going to supply you the information. I had another gal the other day. She's like, but how can my husband come up with all that information, all those bank statements and everything within 2 weeks? I said, no, honey, you're subpoenaing the organization or the bank. They're the ones supplying. They've got the court order that they have to respond to, not your husband.
He doesn't have to say so.
No. And now they can quash it. However, when you're asking for financials, I mean, that's a very normal thing to ask for in a divorce. So the fact that, you put the subpoena out there, and within 2 weeks, I mean, it was always Christmas, the day that my mom would be like, when's the subpoenas coming in? I'm like, because there's a deadline. You got to give them 2 weeks, right? And so 2 weeks, and I'd get like a whole bunch of information, and then I'd stay up for days analyzing it and like doing all the forensics. And so people need to know that they do have that right, even if you're pro se. I was pro se when I did my 21 subpoenas. So you don't have to have an attorney. However, I'm not an attorney, so I don't do them. However, you can find the process.
You can't do them for others. You could do them for yourself. If you know
right.
how to
I can, exactly. You can do it for yourself, and I can direct you to the people that can help you with that. So I specifically, with Only Subpoenas, work directly underneath the attorneys nationwide. So I do their subpoenas for them, and then they come out of their office.
That's awesome.
Not mine. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot to go over, but I love that I finally have gotten to the point where I've niched this far, because I know for me, when it came to my settlement, there was no more hiding. All the information was on the table. And that's all I've ever asked for, was a fair and equitable division. I'm not for gouging them, going for more than what's legally your right.
Yeah, unless they're a real a-hole.
Well, even at that, I always say take the higher road, do the best thing. You know what I mean? Because karma's a little bit of a, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we've met. We've met.
Yeah.
Becky, thank you for hanging out with me today.
Oh gosh, you're so cool.
So much fun.
Well, first of all, I think one of the things that I love about you, Dean, is that you are just so friendly and so kind. And you even did some coaching with me, on one of our calls and stuff. And I literally think about that all the time, because, we all nowadays are on social media, and how we present ourselves is a big deal. And because that's how people can relate to us. So thank you for your coaching and and for the work that you're doing as well. I always like to compliment people, because we're all in this together. And I really appreciate your time.
Well, I will remind everyone that the reason I do it is because you can't lie on this thing. So you
Oh
guys can
no.
zoom in and you can see Becky and you know her true perspective that's showing up right
Oh,
now. That's the human I've met every time, and it
yeah,
has not changed. So when you
yeah,
ladies need it, or men, that's
yeah,
who's going to show up, not the fakey I was doing this on camera stuff. So I'll
yeah.
back
And
that
you,
up as
you
well.
and you and I have seen that, right? But I think we've had enough experience with the camera to, being real and authentic. And there was a time too where I was like, oh, everything's great. Now, you know what? Life is life. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more real we can be and the more authentic we can be. I know that's kind of a buzzword, but I just want to be me, whether got a camera or not.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just, so I love it. But thank you
Thank you
so
again.
much. Really
My
appreciate it.
absolute pleasure. I was excited to have you on today. So, and like I said, I'll find some way to do it again, whatever that means.
What?
Best places for everybody to find you and the podcast.
Yes. So the best places to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, Becky Sampson. I think it's 11, but you'll see Only Subpoenas all around it, all over that. Also Becky Sampson 11 on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Divorcing Strong, TikTok, Divorcing Strong. My podcast is going to be released. You're so funny. Like, it's going to be released. I've got about 15 episodes. So any day it's going to be released up on YouTube under Divorcing Strong with Becky Sampson. So
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, any of those places, and you can find my phone number on beckysampson.com if you need to reach out and just tell me, hey, SOS.
Well, everyone, thank you guys for hanging out with us as well. You can like, share, leave a comment down there for Becky if you enjoyed all this fantastical information. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.